Hello, my name is Will Melbourne, and you're listening to 91.7 FM KRTU San Antonio. Today is an interview day, and we have an amazing guest. His name is D.A. Stern. He's a producer, an artist, a songwriter, an overall great musician, and he's here to talk about his debut album, the mixtape, MMXXTAPE, for all of those listening. How are you doing today, DA?
I'm good.
Man, I am so impressed with your music. But before we get into the actual mixtape, I just want to get a little background information on you. So, are you from New York or New Jersey?
I was born and raised in New Jersey, but I would say like musical journey, career, whatever, started in New York.
Okay.
I lived there for a while, and then now I live in Los Angeles.
Wow, very cool. So, what kind of music did you listen to growing up? What was going around in the house?
I remember my parents, they pretty much only played a handful of records, and it was Michael Jackson's Thriller was on heavy rotation, and I remember listening to the Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 cassette that my dad had a lot. Those are the earliest sort of, not kids music stuff that I remember listening to. And then I remember asking my mom to buy Pump Up the Jam when I was a little kid, not to date myself too much, but that was my first requested album that I got.
And that kick-started you on this journey towards, your musical artist. I dig it a lot. So would you say, like, what age did you start kind of, just like noticing, like, did you play any instruments? I noticed a lot of sax on this album.
Yeah, I do not play the saxophone. I didn't really seriously start playing any instrument until I was 11, but I was always pretty obsessive about music, even as a little kid, reading liner notes and looking at album artwork nonstop, stuff like that. Pretty typical.
Album artwork, I feel like is like really, it's really important, and I dig your style on this latest album. I'm telling you. What was the inspiration? I mean, the colors are fantastic.
Yes. So I have been working with this amazing local artist here in LA named Miles Wintner for the past, for the mixtape release and then some singles that I put out this year. And I basically told him, like, the concept of this release is that it's a mixtape, and I was listening to a lot of 90s hip hop. And, I wanted something that was sort of referential to that, but not to make it look necessarily like it actually came from that era. So, like, the color palette he used, I think, was pretty spot on, but also he modernized it in a way where it feels current to me,
Yeah, no, I 100% get that. So you mentioned 90s hip hop. Who are you listening to? Are you listening to like New York favorites? Are you bumping Biggie?
I wasn't listening to that much Biggie. I was pretty much for a couple months only listening to A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, PM Dawn, Alcoholics, Souls of Mischief, stuff like that. The Fugees came back in my rotation, which was really, really exciting and kind of eye-opening. That stuff is so good, and I wouldn't say I forgot about it. I just hadn't done the deep dive in so long, and it was mind-blowing.
I mean, I think that's one of the great things, like especially about the streaming era right now, which is being able to go and listen to all those like records pretty much on demand. I mean,
yeah.
How would you say like streaming has like influenced like over your musical career? I mean, you say you've been making music since you were like 11, so I mean, what have you noticed?
Well, I mean, I can only really speak for myself here. I know that, I think as we all get older, we tend to lose patience, trying to combat that within myself. But it's amazing having access to everything in your pocket at all times. But I'm trying to be mindful of the fact that it's so easy to switch to something else. And I'm trying to listen to albums and, all the way through and more than once to really like, knowing a release and knowing that something is out just to be a part of, some conversation, it doesn't really feel like enough for me. I want to know the music, to know the music's, for its own sake. And I think it's really easy to lose sight of that in the streaming era, despite streaming's, myriad wonderful benefits.
Right. I mean, it feels like, I know I fall into the pitfalls of when I like find an artist that I really like. I'm obsessive about just playing that one song that I first heard, and I lose track of like trying to actually do a deep dive. And I think that's why I really enjoyed your album, because it's short but it's sweet, and it's the replay value is immense. I mean, have you noticed the like that also switch, when I think about like my growing up, I listened to a lot of rock, classic rock, because that's what my dad was always playing, and those albums are extensive, but it seems like today's albums are really like people are trying to find that nice 7-song hitter.
Yeah, well, for the artist, it's a real compromise because we've sort of culturally we've sort of reverted back to sort of like pre-1962 habit of listening to music where it's more singles based, and I think consumers, I wouldn't say only care about singles, but singles are what are relevant. And in the era in which, numbers are so important and monthly listeners are so important, if you have an album come out versus 10 singles, the lifespan of 10 singles is longer than one album. But, a lot of artists like myself still consider the album to be the statement or the packaged art form and not the single. So to release something that is, would not have been considered a full length 25 years ago, but is still in your heart of hearts an album is a compromise that I was certainly willing to make.
I mean, I really can't agree with that more. So I have a couple of other questions. So I will admit I've been doing a deep dive on your Instagram, going through. You got such a good, quick wit about you. But one of the things that keeps on popping up are these license plates. And I noticed you have a Harry Nilsson license plate back when you were in New Jersey. When did you get into Harry Nilsson? What made you start this vanity plate cycle?
So Nilsson I got into in college, and it was one of those things where, being such a Beatle fan for so long, I'd heard his name, knew some songs, but never really listened to any records. And the first time I brought home, I think the first record I think I started chronologically with him, just got his first record and put it on and was just like, that experience you have when you're like, not necessarily like this person is speaking to me. I mean, his problems are not the same as my problems, but just like this guy seems to be me. Like it seems like he and I there's a lot of projection, but we seem like the same person. Like I'm so ripe to be a fan of his based on my personality, and I love humor and music, and that really hooked me, and sort of combination of music and sadness really hooked me. So it was in college where I just like instantly fell in love and fell very deeply in love with Harry Nilsson and his music. And then the second part of your question was about vanity plates. I don't know. It's just always been something really funny to me because I like to say it's like a tattoo for your car, where it's just like you want to show off so badly some elements of your personality in a visible way. You put it on your skin. You put it on a vanity plate. And I live in Los Angeles. Say what you will about vanity in Los Angeles. I'm not I'm not going to knock the city, but it does seem like a lot of people have big personalities and want you to know about it. So I don't know if you or your listeners have ever been to Los Angeles, but it's like throw a rock and you'll hit a car with vanity plate. They're everywhere here.
I haven't been to LA since I was probably a young boy, so I really can't speak to that. But I did want to know, I think you answered pretty much my next question, which is, are you looking for these vanity plates, or are these vanity plates looking for you? Because you've had an abundance of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I ever actively look for them, but they're so hard to not notice.
No, I 100%. Can you give me like a little run through? Like, do you have a favorite one that you've seen that's just made you like scratch your head and you're just like, how is this possible?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was taking a trip to the desert, and on the highway, we saw this car that said it was a Tesla, and its license plate was fart gas. And that actually got me out of the game for a while. That was like Jordan winning 3 in a row. It's like, where do you go from here? So I stopped, and I got drawn back in eventually, like any bad habit. Fart gas is memorable. I've seen 2 different spellings of mise en place, which is a cooking term. I've been noticing a lot of Bowie license plates, but nothing is better than fart gas.
Especially on the Tesla, that's I wouldn't say it's risky. If you got Tesla, I think you just kind of earned it. Like at that point, it's just like, why not? You got to do it. You mentioned humor, and I've read some of your interviews, and I know Mel and Albert Brooks, pretty big influence on you. If you could talk about that just a little bit, I would be greatly appreciative.
See that? That's a Blazing Saddles poster.
Oh, my girlfriend and I she hadn't seen it, and over quarantine we watched it for the first time, and it was an experience.
I don't know that they could have gotten away with today a lot of the stuff they got away with back then, but I sleep easy knowing that at least Richard Pryor was a co-writer on it, so it had his sign off.
That's what I'm saying.
So like I think I feel so inspired to make music through so many non-musical outlets, and film to me is a big one of those things. Like, for example, in the first track on Mixtape with Colleen Green and Fat Tony, I was really into the idea of film noir and like capturing that sound and wanting the music to sort of like, conjure up that image for the listener. And that being said, so movies obviously are a huge influence for me to make art in general. I don't know that Mel Brooks and Albert Brooks movies influence the music directly in any way other than making me feel creative. But I don't know that their specific humor really comes into my writing, but I think some humor does, and definitely some playfulness does. And their movies are just so ingrained in my, quote unquote comedy sensibilities that maybe they seep in somehow, but I'm not consciously aware of it.
Okay. Like I said earlier, you're a very funny man, especially on the gram. And I was reading that in LA it says that you frequent the Comedy Store. Obviously during the pandemic it's a little difficult. They're not really doing shows right now, but are there any stand-up comedians that you enjoy a lot? Like what's going on there?
Oh man. Yeah. There are a lot. There also, I go to this, when it's not quarantine, I go to this comedy show near my house every week on Mondays. There's this comedian, Anna Saragina, I'm a huge fan of. She's local. I haven't seen her at the Comedy Store, but I've seen her open for Neil Hamburger, who's also has a monthly show, Neighborhood Away. So she stands out as someone I'm a huge fan of. And then, the Comedy Store, it's just like the people who perform there are already so well known and established. It's just, it's just amazing to be there and see like a A-list comedian drop in and try stuff out.
I mean, I think like that's one of the things that I for sure miss in Texas. I mean, it seems that there's kind of a comedy exodus right now. I don't know if you've been aware of that, but there's a huge swing, and people are leaving New York, they're leaving LA, they're coming to places like Texas. And I mean, I know I'm excited for it, but how do you feel about this exodus a little bit?
Look, I did it. I left New York. I'm all for relocation. Yeah, I think it's great. Move to wherever suits you. Also, the world is just so much more interconnected now. Yeah, I'm all for it. There are definitely places to live that are cheaper and more bountiful than New York and Los Angeles. If those places suit you, go for it.
No, I 100% get that. I got one more thing about comedy that I like to ask you. So, have you seen Dave Chappelle's Block Party?
Not in years, but yes, I've seen it. Yeah.
In the Block Party, he says that all comedians want to be musicians and all musicians secretly want to be comedians. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I don't personally feel that way. I think they have their trade-offs. I would love to be able to go play a show and just get there and only have to deal with a microphone and like not have to pack up any gear or anything like that. On the same token, I find the comedians, and definitely successful comedians' lifestyles to be unenvious. You have to have a real passion to, like, no rock and roll band is touring America and playing in like, Missoula or like Peoria, but like every comedian is hitting every single small market where there's a comedy. It's just, it seems lonely to me. So I don't personally want to be a comedian, but I understand the trade-offs. The grass is always greener.
Grass is always greener. Well, I mean, you answered that perfectly. I wanted to get that out there. So let's talk about mixtape. Where did like these ideas kind of start? I listened to like some of your old stuff, and the first song that I listened to was 2 Drink Minimum. I saw that Fat Tony was on there. I'm from Houston. I'm a big Fat Tony fan, so I knew I had to give it a listen. But it seems like most of your music is more pop and rock oriented, and this seemed, I 100% get the film noir aspects to it. Like when I first heard it, I mean, it was almost haunting to me, the way that it just kind of drops and escalates into that. Is this kind of your first step into hip hop a little bit?
Maybe it's not my first attempt, but it's definitely my first serious attempt into. It's the first time I thought of making something that was hip hop adjacent that I could release for myself, as opposed to make in the bedroom for no one to hear or make for someone else. So yeah, I would say it's the first real foray. Yeah.
And Fat Tony, were you a fan before? Did you just reach out? Were you like, hey, I think this would be interesting to do? How did that work out?
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate to say that I knew everybody who performed on Mixtape before they performed on Mixtape. So Fat Tony, he doesn't live here anymore, but he used to live in LA, and we struck up a friendship, and he just agreed to be on the track. So I was a fan, and I did reach out, but we also already had a relationship.
Okay, that's great. I mean, like I found so many. I mean, Colleen Green. I mean, when I first heard her voice on 2 Drink Minimum, it was music. I mean, I know it's music, but it was music to my ears. Like it just like both of their. Like I think like the juxtaposition between rap and then going into like this real melodic pop was entrancing to me. So it's interesting that you knew everybody on the album. I mean, what was it like? What was the thought process going between that song?
That song has a weird history, a different one from the rest of the tracks on the album, in that was a track that was going to be strictly a D.A. Stern track for some future release in some way. And it had vocals and it had lyrics, both of which were mine, that I didn't really like. So I scratched them and then asked Tony and Colleen to sing on it. So that was the genesis of that track. It was sort of like, I love this instrumental so much that I can't just throw it away. Maybe the right course of action is to have someone rap on it, and it worked. So that's how that song came to be.
I mean, I like I said, it was definitely one of my favorites. I also watched the music video for it last night. I mean, what is up with these hot dogs, man? Like, that was, I don't think, like, I haven't laughed that hard at a music video in a real long time.
That makes me very happy to hear. Thank you. Yeah, so I've worked on a couple videos with this one director, a friend of mine named Thad Ruzicka, also LA-based. And we share similar sensibilities for sure. And I was like, yeah, the song is like really noir-y. And I think it would be really, like, I just have this like thought in my head of like a noir cop going to a murder scene and finding hot dogs. And the whole thing just snowballed from there. We tried to like check off, you know, every film noir trope, and we watched. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
No, I have not seen that one. Not seen that one.
That's a movie where it's Steve Martin. It's a film noir movie with Steve Martin, except they shoot him and then fill the rest of the movie with like stock footage from other film noir movies. That was a big point of reference for us.
I mean, it really did. It made me laugh. The part where I think it's like, it looks like it's in a church or something, and you just getting slapped. And I mean, like, and then at the end with the raining hot dogs, I was just like, this man, I needed to know the hot dogs. I mean, are hot dogs like do you like hot dogs a lot? Do they remind you of the Yankees, you know, going to a Yankees game, getting a dog, you know, like, I got to know.
Yeah, I mean, I must say I'm a huge fan of hot dogs. I think they're an underrated portable food. I'll always get a hot dog at a baseball game. In fact, I made another video with Thaddeus where the first shot is of a hot dog. So there's some you know, it's a common thread in my music videos, these hot dogs. Yeah, I don't know. There's something inherently funny about it. I don't know if it's like the phallic resemblance or just like this sort of seemingly like gross food that's amazing and has like for something so like innocuous as a hot dog to have people who have very strong opinions about them and set rules. Like my mom, for example, like if you put ketchup on a hot dog, she will think less of you. It's too serious for a hot dog. I tend to agree with her, but it's too serious for a hot dog. So I don't know. Yeah, they're just funny to me. I don't know.
I mean, look, I can't say that I agree. I need a little bit of ketchup on the hot dog, but what's your perfect hot dog match? Like, I mean, you gotta have, I guess, maybe mustard. You know, are you putting relish on that bad boy? What's going on?
I'm a mustard relish guy, and you know, sometimes at the baseball stadium, feeling different, I'll go sauerkraut and onion.
A little sauerkraut. Now that's what I'm talking about. I think about Chicago every time I think about sauerkraut. Get a brat. You know, that's where it hits home for me. This is just a little tangent. I also read that you visited a lot of baseball stadiums. That was always a dream of mine as a kid. Have you completed that journey, or have you visited every single stadium?
Sadly, no. I've seen 21 of the active 30 stadiums. I was gonna check off 6 more from the list this year on a road trip with my dad, but obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, I wish that it didn't. I mean, like that would have. It really has. That's been a dream of mine for a real long time. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm a big Astros fan. I don't know how you feel about that right now. You know, I mean, most people don't like me talking about the Astros. You know, but
I will never condone cheating in my beloved sport. But I will say the nice thing about it is that it kind of made people hate the Yankees less and collectively hate the Astros. So, I mean, sorry, Texas radio listeners.
I mean, people, they really are. They're fired up about the Astros. I saw some CC Sabathia quote, and he was mad at Carlos Correa, and I was just like, man, I don't know. I was happy that we won a chip. We went through Hurricane Harvey. We needed it. We needed a win, big time.
It's just also like kind of embarrassing for the sport that they were like literally banging on garbage cans. I mean, that was their big plot to foil the leagues. Yeah,
a lot of that. It was. I remember watching those videos, and I don't know. To me, I found it really funny. But again, I think more in my mind too. I'm much more big of a basketball fan. That's where a lot of my heart lies.
Yeah, I mean the NBA's got the good optics right now, to borrow.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Lakers did it.
The Lakers did it. I mean, is there an air about it in Los Angeles right now? Can you feel it? I mean, no parade is coming, but
no. But I saw in the news that that there were people partying outside the Staples Center. Seemed unnecessary. But during the last couple minutes of the game, and then for several minutes after the game, there were a lot of fireworks in the neighborhood going off.
I mean, it's definitely a big win for the city. I mean, it's been a rough year for LA culture, I'd say.
And I hold no truck for the Dodgers, but the idea of a city winning two championships in a year is always exciting. Unless it's Boston, in which case it's never exciting.
Yeah, never exciting. Never exciting. Well, getting back into the album, do you mind if I just kind of run something by you? It's kind of how I felt when I listened to the album, at least what I was picking up in terms of just a common theme that I was seeing. When you're in a relationship, one of the things that you'll do for your significant other is you'll make them a mixtape, right? You'll make them a mixtape of like your favorite songs or songs that you think that they would enjoy or that, remind you of them. But this album felt like the mixtape that you would give after a breakup. Like if you could give that person a mixtape, this kind of feels like what it is. I mean, with tracks like Since You've Been Gone, You Don't Love Me Anymore. I mean, are you going through something, DA? You don't have to get personal, but I mean, is this happening? Like, am I wrong about this?
Let me just say that those two songs are both Weird Al covers. So, and also, no, I'm not going through anything like that. I sort of realized the double meaning of mixtape after the fact, like the one you're talking about, but to me, like, I meant more mixtape in like the hip hop sense of like, jacked beats and sort of like, a mixtape the way like Action Bronson would release a mixtape.
Okay.
Something like that. But yeah, I get the double meaning. There's nothing specific in like the messaging or intentional on my end.
Okay. It's just letting the music play. I get that 100%.
Yeah, I'm happy for anyone to take whatever meaning they want from these very silly songs.
I mean, silly. I mean, like, I definitely get it with the lyrics. I know that you seem to be a big Weird Al fan. When did that kind of love for Weird Al start? Was it were you a Running with Scissors kind of man? What was going on?
I come from, I wouldn't say early days of Al, but earlier days for sure. So I have a brother who's 4 years older than me, and it's a similar question as to like, when did you start playing video games or something? It's just like, yeah, I don't remember a time in my life where there weren't video games. Like, I don't remember a time in my life where I wasn't aware of and listening to and loving Weird Al. It just seemed like my brother had this album of his called Off the Deep End, which You Don't Love Me Anymore is on, and that was big for me. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of his, and I think people within a radius of my age, I haven't really talked to anyone else who's ever thought about this like I have, but a lot of people agree with me that like, he's a reason that I feel like I have eclectic tastes. He's a reason I want to put a lot of different types of songs and sounds on my albums. It's because, you know, like you listen to a Weird Al record, you're getting like 10 genres, and you listen to them all because the lyrics are funny, but then you grow to appreciate that genre and understand the sort of language of that genre because of his parodies. And that's like the most serious thing anyone has ever said about Weird Al's music. But I feel that wholeheartedly. I really do.
Have you seen Weird Al in concert? I remember fifth grade Will was enamored with Weird Al, and I went to see him for my birthday one year, and I mean I got little Weird Al bucks. You know, he dropped, you know, a bunch of fake money onto the floor, and I went crazy. You know, I mean those concerts are they're electric. I mean, do you definitely take a lot of inspiration from that or no?
Well, I mean, I did get to see him once. It was also a birthday gift, and I think I was like 25 or 26, so it wasn't quite fifth grade. But I was just as enamored with him, and they are electric. And like I've seen Michael Jackson in concert. I've seen Madonna. I've never seen anybody with so many costume changes as Weird Al. Incredible.
It feels like every single song, you know, he has a theme for everything. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it was one of the best curated live experiences I've ever witnessed.
I truly, it's a sight to see. Any listener who when the pandemic is over and Weird Al's going out, you know, I mean, see D.A. Stern if he's in your town or if you're in L.A., but also see that man Weird Al. I mean, how do you feel about live performances right now? Is there really any way that you can go out and do that, or is it just basically I'm waiting until 2021, get this vaccine in me as soon as possible?
I have some friends who performed in a park. I didn't know about it. Otherwise, I probably would have gone and kept a safe distance and worn a mask. I heard everyone there was very responsible. For me, I don't see it happening. I don't see myself performing until the world is back to some semblance of normal. Also, like the last versions of D.A. Stern Live, at one show we had an 8-piece band, but typically it's been a 7-piece band, and there are a lot of moving parts, and I think it's already 7 people is already too many for one gathering in a way. So I don't see it happening for myself, but you know, it's kind of the beauty of making music right now is you can release something and just go right back to writing or go right back into the studio and not feel the pressure of having to perform live. You know, obviously, a lot of people aren't making a living right now across the board, but live music is going to suffer tremendously from this, I fear.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic is definitely hitting the arts hard. Did you start working on mixtape during the pandemic? Is this like a pandemic project or?
Actually, no. So like, the videos were definitely shot pre-pandemic. Otherwise, you know, I'm somewhat of a worrier with regards to this pandemic. I would not have been cool being in that close proximity to people, but they were finished when quarantine happened, as was the final mixes and mastering of the record. We're done in quarantine. So it straddles the line of quarantine and pre-quarantine.
100%. Well, I think my next question obviously is, I mean, do you have a favorite song off mixtape?
I don't think I'd have a favorite. They're also different that it would be hard to have a favorite. And making them, they all had such different experiences making them. You know, like some people came to the studio and recorded them. Some people did it remotely. Some of them I wrote the music and lyrics for. Some I didn't write any of the music and lyrics for. Some I wrote just the music, no the lyrics. So they were all so different. And you know, it was kind of an experiment on my end, just seeing what collaborating with different vocalists on music that was going to be representative of me was going to be like. And I'm just so happy it worked out. I'm so grateful of that you know, it's hard to pick one out and say this one rises above the others. That being said, I'm also a real sucker, as you can maybe tell, for saxophone solos. So like The saxophone solo in Two Drink Minimum is probably my favorite moment on the record.
I mean, look, I'm giddy about like horns in music right now. Like I feel like they're making this huge comeback. Can you speak on like what does like sax and trumpets and just kind of like more of like these brass instruments, like what do they do for music?
Yeah, well, let me just say, expect both brass and saxophone on the next batch of G.A. Stern songs as well. Trumpets, I've never had trumpets on a track before, and there is one coming down the pike that will feature trumpet. Yeah, I don't know. You know, like they're another tool, and they can be used to great effect. I think for so long, saxophone especially, it was sort of seen as this cheesy thing. I don't know if that came from, probably because of the 80s, probably because Bruce Springsteen had horns in all his songs, and like I'm a huge fan of his. Point me towards someone from New Jersey who's not, and I'll point you to a liar. But yeah, I don't know. I think people had this sort of like reaction to saxophones and music where they were cheesy, and then I think people's taste in general didn't get cheesier, but got more tolerant of cheese. Like, the idea of like listening to Fleetwood Mac in high school was just not going to fly. And now obviously like they're so cool and so good, and like everyone loves them. And same with Bruce Springsteen. Like, I'll just like there's a lot of backlash. There's a lot of backlash against saxophone. Sort of lost my train of thought. But yeah, I mean, brass, it just takes you somewhere else. And I know for me personally, like, one thing I always liked about hip hop was how jazz adjacent it was. Like all these guys are sampling jazz records and, like knew so much about the genre. Like, but when you married jazz with rock and roll, I think an early reaction to that was sort of like, this is academic, or this is cheesy, or like there's rock and roll and then there's prog rock, or like there's jazz rock. But like I've always felt there are ways to incorporate jazz and jazz instrumentation to rock music that's not proggy and not cheesy. And that's something that I was hoping that rock music could take from hip hop. So I tried to co-opt that as best I could, I guess.
Well, I mean, like, I really do. Like, I think he did a fantastic job with it, because, I mean, I think that's what really, like, drew me in, like, especially, I mean, like, obviously, like, on Two Drink Minimum, but on Since You've Been Gone as well with Chris Thompson from Vampire Weekend, but on this a solo project, Dams of the West. It really, I don't know, like, I think that adding that in, it just elevates the music, and it at least to me, it makes it a lot more enjoyable. And I'm a big hip hop fan, so I completely understand what you're saying about, the influences of jazz and hip hop, but then I can also 100% see it in this album. Like I got so excited when I heard that. I was just like, I have to talk to this person. I really do.
I appreciate it. And to your point earlier, with regards to the sort of, disparate natures of my previous releases and this one, which, obviously to me sound like there's a common thread to a lot of people. I see why there wouldn't be, but, I made those first batch of records that you were talking about earlier that were more like poppy, more power pop, garagey, whatever. Those I was playing with other people on those. There are a couple other instrumentalists on those, but it was mostly a sort of private affair that I was hunkered down doing, in my mom's basement or something. And then being in LA and meeting so many people, there's just so much better access that I have to great talents who play other things and are good at other things that, I wanted to harness the potential of what bringing people like that to the table could do,
Yeah. And I mean, I think you did a great job. I can't say it enough. I cannot recommend this album to all the listeners out there. If you have not checked out D.A. Stern, you got to check out D.A. Stern. He's got a great catalog, great album mixtape. I got one more question for you before we head out of this interview. I was on your Instagram, and I mean, it must have been an early March post. I saw that you got a callback for Jeopardy.
Yeah.
What happened to that? I mean, like, that's weeks before the shutdown.
Yeah, so I'm a huge Jeopardy fan. Watch every day obsessively. My daily calendar is a Jeopardy calendar with like a question on each page, which I actually got at the audition. So I took the online test, and if you pass the online test, in some cases they will call you back for an audition, and then I went to the audition basically.
Oh man! I mean, was it nerve wracking? I mean, I can't imagine. I'm horrible at Jeopardy. You know, I tried watching it. I saw it on Netflix, and I was just like, I'll try it out. And I mean, I got zero answers. Zero.
The Netflix ones I think are older. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, the older ones are a little harder in general. You're just like less in tune with the pop culture of the time, and then you know if. It's the same thing in baseball. It's like lowering the pitchers now. It's like if it's easier, more people will watch it. So I think over time it's gotten a little easier. But yeah, it was probably the most nervous I've ever been in my life, and it was a really cool experience. So you know, I was at some hotel here in LA, and there's this, you know, the first like 20 minutes are like all information and any questions you might have, and you're in a group with 14 other people. And then you take another written, you know, it's the same format as the online test, only you write your answers. And then you play a mock game just so that they can see that you can project your voice and that you can, you know, work the buzzer. And they do this on camera faux interview with you like Alex does after the first commercial break. And then they tell you the most heartbreaking thing, which is, they don't tell you how well you've done, just we might call you between now and a year and a half. So they're like, if we don't call you between now and a year and a half from now, just take the online test again. So I have no idea how well I did, and you might see me on Jeopardy, you might not. It's up in the air.
Man, I mean, like that would be absolutely exciting. Well, this interview is coming to a close. D.A. Stern, thank you so much for being here. Do you have anything to plug? I mean, besides the album, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, David Schmavid, SCHMAVID, reference the Nilsson Schmilson spelling if needed. I'm on Facebook, D.A. Stern Music, DASternmusic.com. And yeah, Will, thank you. This was so much fun. I hope everyone in Texas is doing well. I love Texas. I visit annually.
Very cool. Wait, do you have any family members here, or you're here for the climate? You know.
So actually, I don't celebrate Christmas in my family. We never have. So I go to one of my best friends and just outside Austin to celebrate Christmas with him. It's my annual trip to see my friend Philly.
Oh, very cool. So that's coming up soon. I mean, very cool. That's awesome. I'm great. I'm happy that you got a love for Texas, and I'm hoping that Texas loves you back.
I want a burger for that long.
What a burger. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, you know, a classic Whataburger In-N-Out feud. I mean, do you have any stance on that?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay. I get it.
No, you know what? It's like picking children. I love them both, but I have to have some local pride, you know?
No, I 100% get that, but you know, just give me a little wink if you
Well, I'll just say this. I moved here from New York, where I thought I was going to live my whole life, and it took me no time at all to turn my back on Shake Shack. So I'm all In-N-Out over Shake Shack, and I'll leave it there.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you so much, D.A. Stern. If you haven't heard it already, check it out. It's MMXXTAPE, MMXXTAPE. It's an awesome album. I think people should love it. I mean, they should love it. I'm telling you to love it, people. All right. Well, thank you so much, D.A. I hope you have a good one, and thanks for stopping by. I hope things go well.
Thanks, Will. I'll catch you later.
Catch you later.